On the 31st of January 1968, the North Vietnamese Army reinforced their position around the Mac V compound. 1 kilometer away from Mac V, at the Tur Thien Provincial Prison, a small friendly force were garrisoned against the NVA. Orders had been received from Phu Bai Marine Headquarters for the Mac V Marines to seize the prison and along the way, locate U.S. Air Force personnel. Once again, an ambitious plan. However, Marines of Gulf 25 set out at 7 a.m. They wanted to go directly along Tran Khao Van Street from the compound. But when Lieutenant Mike McNeil's 1st Platoon attempted to cross the Tran Khao Van and Highway 1 intersection, they were confronted with a fusillade of gunfire. Clearly, the situation had changed from the day before. The M48 tanks advanced, but even the tanks found it difficult, as the NVA fired B-40 RPGs from their elevated positions along Tran Khao Van Street. This photo, taken in February 1968, shows the intersection. The Imperial Hotel and Hub nightclub now occupies the block opposite. Notice the lack of masonry fencing on the right side of Tran Khao Van Street. This photo, taken from on top of Mac V, looking down on the intersection. Here some Marines sheltering on Highway 1, shows how inadequate the protection was on the right-hand side of the street. This film, taken from the Hub sign, shows the intersection, with the old yellow Mac V building opposite. The film is not wide-angle, and gives a better illustration of true size of the intersection. Even with the tanks, it took the platoon several hours to make it across Highway 1, to the safety of the fence. The M48 tank then progressed down the Tran Khao Van Street. A squad of Marines left the safety of the fence and went behind the tank. The NVA fire was intense, coming from the school and university. The M48 fired its main 90mm gun at the Jeanne d'Arc High School chapel, and the steeple collapsed. At 1500 hours, Captain Mike Downes's company, Fox 25, were choppered into Dak Lao Park from Phu Bai. They had landed under fire. With them were several reporters, including the Japanese photographer, Kyoichi Sawada. Fox 25 fought their way to the Mac V compound. Upon arriving, they were ordered to renew the push-up Tran Khao Van Street, to rescue U.S. Air Force personnel. Lieutenant Rich Horner's 2nd Platoon were to take the lead. The squad, led by Corporal Chris Brown, were to venture up the right-hand side of the street. This film is taken in front of the Hub nightclub, looking west down Tran Khao Van Street. In 1968, on the right side of the street, there was a short masonry fence. Also, there were no trees on this side of the street, until about where the trees are located today. On the left-hand side of the road, in 1968, from the corner was a long single-story building, which is now occupied by shops and smaller hotels. Then follows the school buildings, which are very much the same as they are today. Brown's squad took the lead, moving up on the right-hand side of the street. Point was taken by Lou Gasparini. He was followed by Charlie Campbell. They moved through the position held by Gulf 25 Marines. Lou Gasparini scuttled down the sidewalk to the shelter of the nearest tree. At that moment, Gasparini was seriously wounded in the arm. He fell motionless onto the street. By this time Brown and his squad were all in the street, under fire. Corpsman James Goslin run up to assist but was shot dead. Following him, William Henschel was also shot. Fire was directed towards Brown and his radio man. Stanley Murdoch, was killed. The line of fire from the school buildings was devastating. Cristobal Figueroa Perez was shot and would later die. Now there was a rescue mission, to get the dead and wounded men off the street. 2 tanks were called up to assist. Close by was the Japanese photographer, Kyoichi Sawadi, who then captured for all time some of the most famous pictures of the Battle of Hue. Corporal David Collins dashed through the fire-swept street and climbed on top of one of the tanks to direct their fire. He continued to do so until he was shot through the neck and killed. It's thought to be his body on top of the left-hand tank. He was awarded the Silver Star for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action. The position of the tanks was much further down the street than mentioned in books we referenced. Like many war photographers, Kyoichi Sawadi was in mortal danger while taking these pictures. He used a telescopic lens for the pictures thus seen, but for the photo used in Life magazine he used a wider-angle lens, on a camera with color film. This photo reveals more details about where the tanks are positioned. Notice the curved guttering. This is the curb entry to Jeanne d'Arc High School and the start of the Lilloy Elementary School. Both schools still operate and little has changed since 1968. There are many other points of location: the power poles, the trees when compared to period aerial photos, and the peculiar hind leg alignment of Lee Thong Kiat Street. Note the Jeep abandoned on the corner of Lee Thong Kiat Street. Ironically, the front cover of the 16th of February 1968 Life magazine went to the enemy. Platoon Commander, 2nd Lieutenant Richard Horner was awarded the Silver Star for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action during the 2-hour battle on Tran Cao Van Street.